The massive Kytherian warship Decimator's edge stretched across 3 kilometers of void, its crystalline hull gleaming like a predator's tooth against the star-speckled darkness. Within its cavernous halls, footsteps echoed with the precision of military discipline as the ship's crew prepared for what their commanders assured them would be humanity's final defeat. The war had raged for 18 standard cycles, and today, they would deliver the killing blow to Earth's last defensive fleet. Commander Zyx Dala stood before the main tactical display, her 4 arms moving in practiced coordination as she reviewed battle plans. Her species, the Kytherians, had conquered 47 systems through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. Their elongated skulls housed brains capable of processing tactical data at superhuman speeds, while their towering 7-foot frames commanded respect from every species they'd encountered. Yet despite their overwhelming advantages, these peculiar humans had proven frustratingly resilient. Commander, called her second-in-command, Sub-Commander Veltar, his voice carrying the distinctive harmonic undertones of their species. The human prisoner has been secured in Detention Bay 7, as requested. Zyx Dala's secondary eyes focused on Veltar while her primary ones remained fixed on the display. The human they'd captured during the last skirmish at Proxima Station was their first live specimen, and High Command had ordered a thorough interrogation before the final assault. Intelligence suggested humans possessed some unknown tactical advantage that had allowed their primitive fleet to inflict surprising casualties on Kytherian forces. Excellent. Have Senior Interrogator Kexnal begin immediately. I want to understand how these creatures continue to surprise us in battle before we eliminate their homeworld. The prisoner in question, Lieutenant Saracen of the Terran Defense Force, sat in the sterile confines of her cell, her wrists bound by energy shackles that hummed with barely contained power. At 28 years old, she was young for a fleet officer, but the war had accelerated everyone's career trajectory. Her dark hair was disheveled from the capture, and a small cut above her left eyebrow had dried to a thin line of blood, but her brown eyes remained alert and defiant. She'd been aboard the TDF Yorktown when the Kytherian ambush caught her squadron off guard. The memory of watching her shipmates die in the vacuum of space while their destroyer was torn apart by alien plasma fire burned in her chest like acid. Now, surrounded by the advanced technology of her enemies, she found herself the sole survivor of a crew of 300. The cell door materialized, not opened, but literally formed from what had been solid wall moments before. Sarah had seen this technology during her capture but still found it unnerving. A tall, imposing figure entered, its pale blue skin marked with the geometric tattoos that denoted rank among the Kytherians. This was clearly an officer of some importance. "I am Senior Interrogator Kexnal," the alien announced in perfect, if slightly stilted, English. "You will provide tactical information regarding human military capabilities." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Lieutenant Saracen, Terran Defense Force, Service Number 77 Alpha 994 Delta. That's all you're getting from me." Kexnal's head tilted in what might have been amusement. His species had studied human behavior extensively through intercepted communications and battlefield observations, yet actually conversing with one remained a novel experience. "Your loyalty is noted but irrelevant. We have already defeated your fleet. Your homeworld will fall within the next planetary rotation. This interrogation is merely to satisfy scientific curiosity about your species' unexpected resilience. If you're so confident, why bother asking?" Sarah shot back, leaning forward despite her restraints. "Maybe you're not as sure about this victory as you claim." Something flickered in Kexnal's expression, surprise, perhaps, at her directness. Most species, when faced with imminent extinction, displayed more fear and desperation. This human seemed almost challenging him. "Your bravado is misplaced. We have studied your military for cycles. Your technology is primitive, your tactics predictable, your resources exhausted. Yet somehow, you continue to inflict casualties that our models cannot account for. This inconsistency requires investigation. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Maybe your models aren't as perfect as you think. The interrogation continued for several hours, but Sarah revealed nothing of tactical value. What struck Kexnal as increasingly unusual wasn't her resistance. Many species fought to the end, but her behavior. She asked questions about his culture, seemed genuinely curious about Kytherian history, and even expressed what appeared to be sympathy when he mentioned their homeworld's harsh environment. This was not the behavior their xenopsychological profiles predicted for a defeated enemy. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Commander Zyx Thala received troubling reports from the forward scouts. The human fleet at Earth was positioned in a defensive formation that made no tactical sense. Their ships were arranged in overlapping fields of fire that would make them vulnerable to flanking maneuvers, yet when Kytherian probe ships attempted to exploit these apparent weaknesses, they encountered unexpected resistance. Subcommander, analysis of human fleet positioning shows a 73% probability of tactical error, yet our probe attacks have failed to penetrate their formation. Explain this discrepancy. Veltar's four hands moved rapidly over his control interface, pulling up battle data from the last 18 months. Commander, review of previous engagements shows a pattern. Human forces consistently deploy in formations that appear tactically flawed according to our analysis, yet prove effective in practice. Additionally, their response times to our maneuvers exceed what should be possible given their inferior communication technology. Zyx Thala studied the data, her advanced mind processing the information at superhuman speed. Are you suggesting systematic failures in our tactical modeling? Not failures, Commander. Gaps. We may be missing a fundamental aspect of human military doctrine. As if summoned by their conversation, Kexnal's voice crackled through the communication system. Commander, request your presence in Detention Bay 7. The prisoner's behavior requires your assessment. Intrigued despite herself, Zyx Thala made her way to the detention level. The human was still secured in her cell, but something in the interrogator's posture suggested frustration rather than progress. Report, Senior Interrogator. Kexnal gestured towards Sarah with two of his four arms. Commander, this specimen displays behavioral patterns inconsistent with our understanding of defeated enemies. Observe. He activated the cell's communication system. Prisoner, the commander of this vessel wishes to address you. Sarah looked up at the tall, imposing figure who had entered the viewing area. Even through the energy barrier, she could sense an aura of authority and intelligence that marked this alien as someone important. So you're the one in charge of this floating death trap. Zyx Thala's primary eyes fixed on the human with laser intensity. I am Commander Zyx Thala of the Kytherian Imperial Navy. You are aboard the warship Decimator's Edge. Your fleet will be destroyed within hours, your planet conquered, your species enslaved or eliminated. Yet you show no fear. Explain this illogical behavior. Maybe because I know something you don't, Sarah replied, settling back against the cell wall with casual confidence that bordered on insolence. Impossible. Kytherian intelligence gathering is flawless. We have monitored your communications, analyzed your technology, studied your tactics for cycles. There are no human capabilities unknown to us. Sarah's smile widened. You've studied our technology, sure. Our tactics, probably. But you've never understood what really makes us dangerous. Zyx Thala felt a flicker of something she rarely experienced, uncertainty. Elaborate. You're a species of individuals, aren't you? Each of you is highly capable, supremely intelligent, perfectly efficient. You probably conquered most of your enemies through pure technological and tactical superiority. But humans, we're different. Your differences are irrelevant. Inferior technology cannot overcome superior firepower. See, that's where you're wrong. Sarah stood up, energy shackles crackling as she moved. You think this war is about technology and tactics and firepower. But for us, it was never about any of that. It's about something you can't measure in your models or account for in your calculations. Kexnal exchanged a glance with his commander. The prisoner appears to be claiming knowledge of a human capability not included in our intelligence files. Humor me, Zyxdala said, stepping closer to the energy barrier. What is this mysterious human advantage? We care about each other. The words were simple, delivered without drama or emphasis, but they hung in the air like a challenge. Not just our own species, though that's part of it. We care about things that don't make tactical sense. We'll die for strangers, fight for principles, sacrifice ourselves for ideas. And that makes us unpredictable in ways your computers can't process. Zyxdala's secondary eyes narrowed. Emotional attachment is a weakness, not a strength. It leads to irrational decision-making and tactical errors. Does it? Sarah moved closer to the barrier, her voice taking on an intensity that seemed to fill the small space. When the Yorktown was dying, my crewmates didn't abandon ship to save themselves. They stayed at their posts, kept fighting, kept transmitting targeting data to other ships even as the hull breached around them. Your models probably recorded that as tactical error, failure to preserve valuable personnel. But that data they transmitted saved 3 other ships and let them take out your lead cruiser. Something cold touched the base of Zyxdala's skull, the first whisper of understanding. You sacrifice efficiency for emotional satisfaction. We sacrifice individuals for the group. But not in the way you think. See, when Lieutenant Martinez stayed at her post instead of reaching an escape pod, she wasn't throwing her life away. She was trusting that her sacrifice would matter, that the people she saved would remember her, would fight harder because of what she gave up. And they did. Every human in the fleet knows the story now. Every one of them fights a little harder, thinks a little faster, pushes a little further because they know their crewmates would do the same for them. Kexnal's 4 arms had gone still, his attention completely focused on the human's words. This is combat effectiveness enhanced through emotional manipulation? It's not manipulation, Sarah said firmly. It's trust. It's love. It's knowing that no matter how bad things get, you're not alone. Your people fight as individuals trying to minimize their own casualties. We fight as a family protecting our home. The detention bay fell silent except for the low hum of the ship's engines. Zyxdala found herself processing concepts that didn't fit cleanly into Kytherian strategic doctrine. Their species valued efficiency, individual excellence, and logical decision-making above all else. The idea that emotion could enhance rather than degrade combat performance was difficult to accept. Commander, Veltar's voice crackled through the communication system, urgent with barely controlled alarm. Long-range sensors detect massive movement in the human fleet. They're not retreating or fortifying. They're advancing. All vessels, full acceleration, directly toward our position. Zyxdala's primary eyes snapped to the nearest display panel, which immediately showed tactical data from the bridge. The human fleet, hopelessly outgunned and facing certain destruction, had abandoned all defensive positions and was charging directly at the Kytherian armada in what could only be described as a suicidal attack. Analysis? Zyxdala demanded. Unknown, Commander. No logical strategic purpose can be determined for this maneuver. They cannot hope to inflict significant damage before being destroyed, and the attack angle offers no tactical advantages. Sarah's voice cut through their conversation like a blade. You want to know why they're coming? Because they know I'm here. Because humans don't leave their people behind. Because every single member of that fleet would rather die trying to save one captured comrade than live with the knowledge that they abandoned her. That's tactically insane, Kexnal protested. They're sacrificing hundreds of ships and thousands of lives for one individual of no strategic importance. And that, Sarah said quietly, is exactly why you've never understood us. To you, I'm a single unit with no strategic value. To them, I'm family. And humans will do anything to protect their family. The implications hit Zyxdala like a plasma blast to the chest. Every engagement, every battle, every tactical error in her analysis suddenly took on new meaning. human ships that stayed to help damaged vessels instead of pursuing tactical objectives. Crews that fought to the last rather than surrendering when defeat was certain. Rescue missions launched into hopeless situations to recover personnel with no special training or knowledge. "They're not fighting a war," she whispered, the realization settling over her like ice. "They're protecting their pack." "Now you're starting to get it," Sarah confirmed. "You've been trying to win a military campaign. But we've been fighting for survival, not just physical survival, but the survival of everything we care about. Every human who dies matters to us. Every ship lost diminishes us. Every small victory gives us hope. Your superior technology and tactics can destroy our bodies, but they can't touch what makes us human." Alarms began blaring throughout the ship as the human fleet closed distance. On the bridge, tactical officers scrambled to respond to an attack pattern that defied all conventional military logic. The human ships weren't trying to maximize damage or minimize casualties, they were trying to punch through the Cytherian formation to reach the decimator's edge, and they were willing to absorb devastating losses to do it. "Commander, human vanguard will reach our outer defensive perimeter in 23 minutes. Recommend immediate tactical withdrawal to maintain strategic advantage." But ZYX Stala was no longer listening to the tactical chatter. She was watching Sarah's face, seeing something there that her species had never encountered before: absolute certainty. Not the certainty of victory, but the certainty that the fight itself mattered more than the outcome. "You knew," ZYX Stala said slowly. "When we captured you, you knew they would come." "I hoped," Sarah corrected. "But yes, I believe they would try. Just like I believe that no matter what happens in the next few hours, some of them will make it home. And when they do, they'll remember everyone who didn't. They'll tell the stories, honor the sacrifices, and keep fighting until either we win or there's nobody left to fight." The ship shuddered as the first human vessels engaged the outer defense grid. Through the hole, they could hear the distant thunder of plasma cannons and the sharper crack of human railgun volleys. The battle for Earth's final fleet had begun, but for the first time since the war started, ZYX Stala wasn't certain of the outcome. Because now she understood what they were really fighting against. Not just human ships and human weapons, but human hearts. And she had no idea how to defeat an enemy that grew stronger with every loss, more determined with every sacrifice, and more dangerous with every act of love. In her cell, Sarah closed her eyes and whispered a prayer for her crewmates racing through the void toward almost certain death. They would come for her because that's what humans did. They would fight impossible odds because that's what love demanded. And win or lose, they would prove that some things were worth more than tactical advantage or technological superiority. They would prove that humanity's greatest weapon had never been their ships or their guns. It was their hearts. The bridge of the Decimator's edge had become a symphony of controlled chaos. Alert klaxons wailed while tactical displays flickered with incoming data as the human fleet tore through space toward them with suicidal determination. Commander ZYX Stala watched in growing amazement as ship after ship took devastating hits yet continued their advance, some limping forward on emergency power while their hulls vented atmosphere and debris. "Commander, human destroyer TDF Relentless has lost main engines and is operating on maneuvering thrusters only, yet continues to advance and maintain fire," reported the tactical officer, his voice betraying confusion that mirrored ZYX Stala's own thoughts. "Recommend targeting for elimination." "Negative. Continue monitoring. I want to understand their behavior." ZYX Stala moved between control stations, her four arms operating multiple interfaces simultaneously while her advanced mind processed the unprecedented tactical situation unfolding before them. What she witnessed defied every principle of warfare her species understood. When Cytherian ships sustained critical damage, they withdrew to preserve valuable resources and personnel. When defeat became inevitable, they surrendered to fight another day. It was logical, efficient, and had served them well across 47 conquered systems. The humans did none of these things. A battered cruiser, the TDF Defiant, had lost half its weapon systems and was bleeding atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Any rational commander would order evacuation or retreat. Instead, it accelerated directly toward a Kytherian battlecruiser 3 times its size, crews working frantically to reroute power to remaining weapons. When the inevitable plasma barrage tore through its forward sections, the human ship didn't falter. It kept coming, kept firing, kept fighting until the very moment its reactor went critical and painted space with brilliant fire. Tactical assessment of human behavior? ZYX Stala demanded. Unknown, Commander. Their losses exceed acceptable parameters by 400%, yet they maintain unit cohesion and aggressive posture. This does not match any known military doctrine. Subcommander Veltar approached with his own analysis. Commander, I've been studying individual ship movements. Each vessel appears to be covering damaged allies while simultaneously pressing the attack. They're fighting as a collective organism rather than independent units. The truth of those words became evident as ZYX Stala watched a pattern emerge. When the destroyer TDF Yorktown II took critical damage to its engines, 2 frigates immediately moved to screen it from enemy fire while a heavy cruiser provided covering bombardment. The damaged ship didn't retreat, instead, it used its remaining weapons to support the vessels protecting it. When one of the screening frigates lost shields, the others adjusted position to compensate. It was like watching a school of fish move as one entity, each individual responding instantly to threats against the group. This is unprecedented, ZYX Stala murmured. They're not just coordinated, they're genuinely functioning as a single organism. Meanwhile, several decks below, Senior Interrogator Kexnal found himself in the unusual position of being educated by his prisoner. Sarah had been providing running commentary on the battle, explaining human tactical doctrine in terms that fundamentally challenged Kytherian understanding of warfare. See, your people fight like chess masters, she explained, gesturing toward the tactical display visible through her cell's observation window. Every move calculated, every piece valuable, every loss carefully weighed against potential gain. It's efficient, logical, and probably works great against other species that think the same way. It has proven effective against 47 civilizations, Kexnal replied, though with less certainty than he'd felt hours earlier. But humans don't play chess. We play. I guess you'd call it pack hunting. Every member of the pack is willing to take risks for the group. Every member trusts that the group will take risks for them. So when Captain Rodriguez on the Defiant made that suicide run at your battlecruiser, he wasn't throwing his life away pointlessly. He was buying time for the rest of the pack to close distance and take better positions. As if to illustrate her point, the tactical display showed exactly that scenario playing out. The Defiant's sacrifice had forced the Kytherian battlecruiser to redirect its fire and adjust position, creating a gap in the defensive formation that 3 human ships immediately exploited. Their combined assault overwhelmed the battlecruiser's shields and reduced it to drifting wreckage in less than 30 seconds. One ship destroyed 3 times its size through coordinated sacrifice, Kexnal observed. The mathematical efficiency is remarkable. It's not about efficiency, Sarah corrected gently. Captain Rodriguez didn't calculate odds or weigh tactical advantages. He saw his pack in danger and responded with everything he had. The tactical benefits were just a side effect of something much more powerful. The ship shuddered as human weapons found their mark against the outer hull. Through the detention bay's reinforced walls, they could hear the distant rumble of plasma impacts and the sharper reports of human kinetic rounds. The battle was getting closer. On the bridge, ZYX Stala received a report that crystallized everything she'd been observing. Commander, analysis of human communication intercepts reveals unusual patterns. They're broadcasting personal messages between ships during active combat operations. Tactical coordination? Negative. Personal communications. Crew members sending messages to friends and family on other vessels. Captains discussing shared memories. Some ships are singing together. ZYX Stala's secondary eyes focused on the communications officer with sharp intensity. Singing? During combat? Affirmative. The heavy cruiser TDF Enterprise is broadcasting what appears to be a traditional human song. Other ships are joining in. It's actually improving their coordination efficiency. The song in question was Amazing Grace, and its haunting melody was spreading through the human fleet like wildfire. Voices that should have been coordinating targeting solutions were instead harmonizing across the void, creating something beautiful amid the destruction. Yet somehow, impossibly, their tactical performance was improving rather than degrading. How is this possible? Veltar demanded. Irrelevant communication should reduce combat effectiveness. But Zyxthala was beginning to understand. She'd spent her entire career studying military efficiency, technological advantages, and tactical supremacy. She'd never considered that combat effectiveness might be enhanced by factors that couldn't be measured in databases or quantified in reports. The humans weren't just fighting a battle, they were affirming their connection to each other in the face of annihilation. Every shared song, every personal message, every act of mutual protection was strengthening their resolve rather than weakening their focus. Subcommander, redirect course toward the center of their formation. I want to test a hypothesis. Commander, that will expose us to concentrated fire from their entire fleet. Execute the order. As the massive Kytherian warship changed course, the human response was immediate and telling. Instead of taking the opportunity to escape or spread their formation to minimize casualties, every human vessel converged on the decimator's edge like antibodies responding to infection. They were willing to absorb devastating losses to protect their captured comrade. In the detention bay, Sarah felt the ship's course change through the subtle shift in artificial gravity. They're coming for me, she said quietly. Kexnal consulted his tactical display. Your fleet is suffering catastrophic casualties. Over 30% losses in the last hour alone. Any rational commander would withdraw. Lucky for me, humans aren't always rational. Sarah's voice carried a mixture of pride and sorrow. They're not coming because it makes tactical sense. They're coming because leaving someone behind goes against everything we believe in. The philosophical implications struck Kexnal with unexpected force. His species valued individual excellence and efficient resource allocation. The idea of risking the many for the few violated every principle of Kytherian military doctrine. Yet the humans approaching through lethal crossfire were demonstrating that such irrationality could become a tactical advantage when it inspired extraordinary courage and coordination. An explosion rocked the ship as human boarding pods breached the outer hull. Emergency alerts flooded the bridge as Zyxthala realized her hypothesis had been proven correct, and that she'd potentially doomed her own vessel in the process. Boarding parties detected on decks 7 through 12. Human forces are advancing toward the detention level. Security response? Encountering unusual difficulties, Commander. Human soldiers are displaying coordinated tactics that exceed our modeling parameters for individual unit capabilities. What the security forces were encountering was a rescue team that fought with the desperate fury of people trying to save a family member. Staff Sergeant Marcus Thompson led the boarding party with the kind of tactical brilliance that emerged when survival instincts combined with absolute determination. His team moved through the alien ship's corridors like they'd been born for urban warfare, each member anticipating the other's movements with supernatural precision. Rodriguez, left flank. Chen, no relation to the lieutenant, covering fire. Martinez, breach that bulkhead. Thompson's commands were crisp and efficient, but underneath them was something the Kytherian defenders couldn't quantify: love in action. Every human soldier on that rescue team had volunteered for what was essentially a suicide mission. They'd left families behind, knowing they'd probably never return home. But they'd done it anyway because Saracen was one of them, and humans didn't abandon their own. The Kytherian security forces, despite their superior technology and physical capabilities, found themselves gradually pushed back by an enemy that seemed to grow more dangerous with every corridor they advanced through. When Corporal Davis took a plasma bolt to the shoulder, he didn't fall back for medical attention, he adapted his fighting style and kept advancing. When Private Williams ran out of ammunition, she picked up fallen Kytherian weapons and learned to use them on the fly. In the detention bay, Kexnal watched his security monitors with growing amazement. How are they advancing so quickly? Our forces have superior numbers, better weapons, defensive positions. But you don't have what they have, Sarah replied softly. You don't have the absolute certainty that the person next to you would die before letting you down. You don't have the knowledge that failure means abandoning someone you've sworn to protect. Your soldiers are fighting for duty and efficiency. Mine are fighting for love. The word hung in the air between them, love, a concept that Kytherian military doctrine had never bothered to quantify because it seemed irrelevant to combat operations. Yet here it was, proving itself to be perhaps the most potent force multiplier in the galaxy. Plasma fire echoed through the corridors, growing closer with each passing moment. Commander Zyx Dala found herself facing a decision that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. She could continue the battle, likely destroying the human rescue force but at costs that might cripple her own ship. Or she could try something unprecedented in Kytherian military history. Sub-Commander, open a channel to the human boarding party. Commander? Do it. Moments later, a human voice crackled through the bridge speakers, harsh with exertion but steady with determination. This is Staff Sergeant Thompson, Terran Defense Force. We're here for Lieutenant Chen. Stand down and nobody else has to die today. Zyx Dala stepped forward to address the communications pickup directly. Sergeant Thompson, this is Commander Zyx Dala. I propose a temporary cessation of hostilities to discuss terms. A pause. What kind of terms? Your lieutenant in exchange for safe passage for your boarding party. Another pause, longer this time. When Thompson's voice returned, it carried a note of suspicion. Why would you negotiate? You've got superior firepower, defensive positions, home field advantage. Zyx Dala found herself speaking words she'd never thought she'd utter. Because your lieutenant has taught us something about warfare that our tactical databases never included. And because I believe further combat would be wasteful. 10 minutes later, an unprecedented scene unfolded in the detention bay of the Decimator's Edge. Human and Kytherian soldiers faced each other across a corridor lined with advanced alien technology, weapons lowered but ready, while their commanders attempted something that hadn't happened in 18 months of interstellar war, actual communication. Sarah stepped out of her cell, energy shackles deactivated, to find herself facing a squad of grimy, battle-worn humans who looked at her like she was their own daughter. Sergeant Thompson's face split into a grin beneath his helmet's visor. Ma'am, we've come to take you home. But before Sarah could respond, Commander Zyx Dala spoke from behind the Kytherian formation. Lieutenant Chen, before you depart, I would hear more about this human tactical advantage. My species has conquered 47 star systems through superior technology and tactical excellence. Yet your people have fought us to a standstill using what appears to be controlled emotional response to combat situations. Sarah looked at the towering alien commander, her captor, her interrogator, and now perhaps something approaching a colleague. It's not controlled emotional response, Commander. It's just who we are. We're pack hunters who evolved to care for each other. When we went to the stars, we didn't leave that behind. Every human ship is a family. Every fleet is a tribe. Every colony is a community bound together by something stronger than tactical doctrine. And this, love, you believe it to be an effective military strategy? I believe it's what makes us human, Sarah replied. Everything else, the technology, the tactics, the courage, flows from that. We don't fight because we hate our enemies. We fight because we love each other. Sergeant Thompson stepped forward, his weapon now completely lowered. Ma'am, if you're done giving the enemy a lecture on human nature, we should probably extract before their reinforcements arrive. But Zyx Dala held up one of her 4 hands. Sergeant, permission to speak candidly? Thompson's eyebrows rose above his visor. Sure. Your species has demonstrated tactical capabilities that our models cannot account for. This suggests that Kytherian understanding of warfare may be incomplete. I would propose that continued conflict between our peoples would be inefficient for both sides. The corridor fell silent except for the distant sounds of the larger battle still raging outside the ship. Two species, locked in mortal combat for 18 months, suddenly found themselves contemplating something neither had expected, the possibility that their enemy might not be entirely unreasonable. Sarah looked between the human and alien forces, seeing something in Zyxdala's expression that gave her hope. "Commander, what are you suggesting?" "A ceasefire. Time for both our species to reassess our strategic positions." Staff Sergeant Thompson glanced at his team, then back at the alien commander. "That's way above my pay grade, but I'll relay the message to command. In the meantime, my orders are to extract Lieutenant Chen." "Understood. You may proceed without interference." As the human rescue team prepared to leave, Sarah paused at the detention bay entrance. "Commander Zyxdala, may I offer one final observation?" "Proceed." "Your species conquered 47 systems through superior individual capabilities. But those were 47 different civilizations with 47 different approaches to warfare. You've never fought a species that thinks of war as community self-defense rather than individual competition." Zyxdala's four eyes focused intently on the small human who had somehow managed to change her understanding of galactic warfare in the course of a single day. "And this distinction is significant? It means that every battle you fight against us makes us stronger rather than weaker. Every loss teaches us more about working together. Every sacrifice deepens our commitment to protecting each other. You're not just fighting human ships, Commander. You're fighting the human heart. And love is the one force in the universe that grows stronger when it's tested." With those words, Lieutenant Sarah Chen walked out of Kytherian custody and back to her own people, leaving behind a ship full of aliens who suddenly found themselves reconsidering everything they thought they knew about warfare, efficiency, and the true source of military strength. 6 months later, the Terran Kytherian armistice would be signed aboard a neutral space station, marking the first time in their species' history that the Kytherians had agreed to a negotiated peace rather than demanding unconditional surrender. The document would specifically cite unforeseen tactical variables requiring strategic reassessment as the reason for ending hostilities. But those who had been present during Sarah Chen's rescue would always know the truth: humanity's greatest weapon had never been their ships, their guns, or their tactical brilliance. It was their capacity to love each other so fiercely that death itself became preferable to abandonment. And in the end, love had proven more powerful than all the advanced technology in the galaxy. The end.